Yesterday we discussed about the pollen pistil interaction. I told you that the pollen wall is made up of exine. It is a sporopollenin, which is a chemical. It reacts with the chemical secreted by the stigma, thereby identifies the compatible pollen that would germinate on the stigma. Other than this, when the pollen interacts with the filiform apparatus, there also is chemical reaction. The filiform apparatus secretes chemical and hence helps passage for the pollen tube to germinate through into the embryo sac and then release the male gametes. For crossbreeding to occur, the plants themselves have developed some outbreeding devices. You will find self incompatibility, that is, pollen from the same plant cannot germinate on the stigmas of the flowers of the same plant. Similarly, there are the monoecious plants where the male and the female flower grow on different plants. Like in papaya, the male tree is a different plant, the female tree is a different plant. The male tree bears only flowers, the female tree bears the fruits. Similarly, you will find some plants which have differently positioned the male and the female flowers. Like in maize, the male flowers are at the topmost side and the female flowers, the corn is on the lower side of the plant. These are the methods via which the plants choose cross pollination. Another thing is development or maturation of the, suppose it is a hermaphrodite or a bisexual flower, so the plant undergoes this cross breeding by the method where either the stigma develops before the pollen grains develop, or the pollen grains develop and shred off before the stigma develops. So when the stigmas develop, it is known as protogyny. When the anthers develop before the stigma, it is known as protoandry. So the receptivity are not synchronized. The release of the pollen and the receptivity of the stigma, maturation of the stigma, they are not synchronized. Another method what the plants have adapted is differently positioned anthers and stigmas. The stigmas would be longer, the anthers would be shorter, so they won't be able to transfer the pollen with the help of wind or just by shaking the flower or by insect. And then that's the reason it would have to be like pollen from a different plant by an agent would only fertilize the stigma. So this is known as where the stigmas and anthers are differently positioned. So these are the 4 points, 4 ways how inbreeding depression is controlled by the plants themselves. We call them outbreeding devices developed by the plant in due course of evolution. These techniques have developed. Well, yes, there are still plants which prefer self pollination and the pollens of the same plant or flower are fertilizing the stigma, but then you'll find most of the plants are cross pollinated. Now, talking of the pollen grains again, we will be doing an experiment when the school reopens, germination of the pollen grains. If we keep this pollen grains in sugar solution for some time and see them under the microscope with the help of safranin, we'll be able to see the germination of the pollen grains. Pollen tubes start coming out of the pollen grains and it is visible under the microscope. You may not be able to see the nuclei, but then the pollen tube is visible. We have this as a minor experiment, slide preparation experiment in your 12th standard. We'll be doing this experiment when the school reopens. We've also discussed about artificial hybridization. and the two techniques involved in it is emasculation and bagging. Suppose a flower is unisexual, that is, it is only a pistillate plant. Do you need to emasculate? No, there are no anthers present. Why do you need to emasculate? But then bagging is required, or else pollens from undesired sources would come and germinate on the stigma and would cause fertilization. When plant breeders breed, they keep in mind that the pollen pistil interaction is a very important step. Keeping that in mind, the breeders cross a particular plant with another plant depending upon the compatibility of the plant. So now the pollens have the male gametes have reached the embryo sac, and as I told you, among the two male gametes, one fuses with the egg cell, the other nuclei fuses with the two polar nuclei. So the zygote formed is diploid, but the two polar nuclei and one male gamete together forms a triploid. Since there are two fusions occurring, one fusion of the male gamete and the egg cell, and the next one is fusion of the male gamete with the polar nuclei, it is known as double fertilization. Two fusions of the cells occurring is known as double fertilization. The process of double fertilization was first demonstrated by Novotny in two group of plants, and what he saw was the two polar nuclei, as they are released by the filiform apparatus, both of them enter the synergids into the cytoplasm of the synergids. One of them is directed towards the egg cell and the other one is directed towards the polar nuclei. Two nuclei released in the two synergids, one of them directed towards the egg cell and the other male nuclei directed towards the polar nuclei. The process of fusion of the male and the female gamete is known as syngamy. This we have discussed in the previous chapter also. So that is the generative fertilization which is occurring, and this is the first fertilization. Next is fusion of the male nuclei with the polar male gamete with the polar nuclei. So this is the reason we call it as double fertilization. Now this process of fusion of the two male polar nuclei with the male gamete, so what is happening? It is a triple fusion. Two polar nuclei plus one male gamete. A triploid is being formed. This is also known as triple fusion, and the end product of the triple fusion is primary endosperm nucleus. This nucleus, which is a triploid, is also known as the primary endosperm nucleus, or PEN. The primary endosperm nucleus becomes part of the central cell, and the central cell develops into endosperm. As I had told you earlier also, this endosperm provides nutrition to the growing embryo. Depending upon whether the endosperm persists with the cell, with the seed, or it does not persist, there are two types of seed which we'll be studying later. But then the central nucleus develops into endosperm, which is triploid. There are various types of endosperm, we'll be studying about them also. So this is a embryo sac after the fertilization has occurred. Here zygote has been formed, it is 2N. The primary endosperm nucleus is present, it is 3N triploid. The primary endosperm cell, so this becomes the primary endosperm. So the synergids are degenerating The antipodal cells are also degenerating. What is developing is the zygote and the primary endosperm cell. So the zygote shows first division. How does the zygote divide? It divides mitotically. As it starts dividing, there is a pattern in the division. The zygote initially divides like this and then forms the globular embryo. You see there's a structure like this where there's one big cell, huge cell, then a linear arrangement of cells, and then there's again a mass of cell over here. This is known as the globular embryo. Then it gets develops into the heart-shaped embryo. Here again is the suspensor, and then it becomes, the embryo becomes like this. This part is the radicle. These two ends of the heart-shaped embryo develops into the cotyledons, and the other part is your plumule, which is over here. This part will give rise to the plumule. So this is how the embryo develops. In a dicotyledonous plant, two cotyledons are being formed from the globular mass of cell. In a monocotyledonous plant, a single cotyledon develops from the globular part. You see, the initial stages of both monocot as well as dicot is similar. Well, this is all part of another branch of biology which we call as embryology or developmental biology. In today's date, it is known as developmental biology. And there are many enzymes, hormones involved in the development of even plant cells. We are more interested in animals, in human embryos, but then the plant embryos are equally interesting if we study them, how they are growing, how they are being affected by various hormones, in which direction they have to grow. Again, the initial stages are always similar, and then the later on stages you get to know what organism it develops into. After fertilization has occurred, now begins the post-fertilization events. Among these post-fertilization events, the first thing is development of endosperm. Why is endosperm important? Because it provides nutrition to the growing embryo, and it helps in development of the embryo. So first is development of embryo. Next is the embryo development, which we just now discussed just in few lines, how the various stages changes. Next is how the ovule develops into a seed, and then the maturation of the ovary into a fruit. Then discussing what are true fruits and false fruits, how do we distinguish them, what are the features. So post-fertilization events basically involves four things: development of the endosperm, development of the embryo, maturation of the ovule into seeds, and maturation of ovary into the fruit. The primary endosperm cell undergoes division. It either forms a free nuclear endosperm or develops into cellular endosperm. Another type of endosperm is there, which is known as halobial endosperm. In case of nuclear endosperm, the primary endosperm nucleus keeps on dividing without undergoing cytokinesis. That is, only the nucleus keeps dividing and there is no cell formation, there is no cell wall formation occurring. This is known as nuclear endosperm. An example of this is your coconut. The coconut milk, it is nothing other than your free nuclear endosperms. These free nuclear endosperms then develop into individual cells, as is seen in rice and wheat. But in coconut, only a few of them form the cells, which we see as the white coconut. Inside the water is your free nuclear endosperm. Next is the cellular endosperm, where cell division occurs and the tissues form the endosperm. It is known as cellular endosperm. Now, halobial endosperm is, there is a in halobial endosperm, the division of the cell is in a particular pattern. The primary endosperm cell, it divides into two different size cells. One is small and one is big. One is near the chalazal end and the other micropylar end cell. It keeps dividing and forms your endosperm tissue. Now, the chalazal end cell, it acts as a haustoria, and the whole thing together acts as an endosperm, that is food for the growing embryo. So the endosperm development is of three types: nuclear endosperm, cellular endosperm, and the halobial endosperm. NCERT mentions only about nuclear endosperm, and the example of coconut is very important. They have asked questions based on free nuclear endosperm quite a number of times. So this is important.